equipment from MB Company. Hopefully this load is going to take us up to Minneapolis for a few days, and then we're going to take it out to Denver. After we reload it in Minneapolis, we shoot straight to Denver. So you guys are going to get a good look at Orwell running the West Coast this time. A little different, change of pace. Also, it'll be our first trip with a brand new Green APU. No more idling if it gets really cold. No more freezing at night. No more sweating to death at night. Look how pretty that thing sits, just sitting there like that underneath that can. That's perfect, ain't it? Looks like it was factory built. Should have been. Now it is. All right, with that, we're going to get pushing the brake knobs and get strolling. Let's go load this piece of equipment. So with that, let's get ahead and get going. Got a lot of stuff to talk to you guys about as far as the future videos in the next maybe week or so. This load and our little Green APU. Got a lot of questions. I need to answer them. Let's get at it. We'll talk while we drive. Come on, let's go. Alrighty, boys and girls, we're ready to go. Got the trailer hooked up. Got the board put away. Shop's locked up, we're ready to ride. You clean these windows though. I ran out of bug juice on my last trip out, and I hit a lot of fog leaving here to go deliver my last load. Sadly, I didn't film that last load. I didn't bring all my cameras. I only brought the handy cam for filming the Green APU. And then I got offered a load. I couldn't turn it down. You know, it was just too good to turn down. So I took it. But I didn't have GoPros, so we didn't really film it. Sorry about that, guys. It was a wide load going from Peoria area, what was it? Chillicothe, Illinois. And that went to Manitowoc. Oddly enough, 3 days later, I'd be coming through Manitowoc again. All right, guys, hit that like and subscribe. It's like I hit that brake knob. You guys hit that like and subscribe. We're not moving until you do. All right, in the back, shush. All right, good, got it done. All right, let's roll. Now you're gonna notice when I pull away, unfortunately for the time being, I only have one stack, one exhaust stack hooked up. Kind of goofy looking, but it is what it is. With the Green APU located where I wanted it, the exhaust was too low. I had made a Y pipe back when I had rebuilt this engine, and off the Y pipe it came across the back of the head, and the other one dropped down and kind of went next to the frame. Well, the Green APU had to take up that space. Also, we had to relocate the cab jack from that side over to this side, so it now takes up the gap between the front wheel. I have air tanks right behind the front wheel, and then there's this little gap between the air tanks and the fuel tank. So the cab jack is now on this side. That side is where the Green APU is now hooked up. So my exhaust had to be relocated. I am eventually going to rehook that stack and then figure something different with the Green APU's exhaust. But for the time being, that's how it's going to stay. Because to be honest, I have to keep moving. I've taken too much time off. And me and my older son just got back with Jen with the big trip. If you notice the Polaris RZR sitting on the trailer when I pulled Orwell out, we just got back from the Silver Lake sand dunes in Michigan. Awesome trip. I learned a lot. And I got hurt a little bit. So that RZR is going to need some mods. That's going to be on FSC Speed Shop. When we start messing with that, we're going to go ahead and put that stuff on the Speed Shop channel along with other automotive content. So automotive content, RZR content, boats, that kind of crap, that's going to be on the FSC Speed Shop YouTube channel that I have. RZR needs some mods. We got a big trip in about a month from now going out to Glamis, California. So I really want to turn and burn from now till the next month. So I took a little time off when I had the APU put on. We're going to talk about that here in a minute, of course, how that process went. There's a lot of questions and comments I seen on the video about putting the APU on the truck, and I want to address that here in a little bit. If my plans for this week work out the way I have planned, which my mother always used to say to me, if you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans. But if my plans hold true, I'm going to edit and drop this video today, same day I'm filming it. I want to give a run after we installed the APU that me taking it out, which means I have to edit live as I go. But all the same time, I might not have the time to edit as I go. So if I don't, I'm going to sprinkle in videos from the past that I haven't even addressed. I have an electric fire truck that I took to New York, and I also have a piece of equipment for crane installations that I took to Louisiana. Of course, that all being before the Green APU was installed, so I might have to interject with some of those videos in the future. Not to mention, the last video I put up was the installation video of the Green APU, and that video had gotten a lot of comments and a lot of traction, which makes me happy, but also a lot of questions and even some critiques, and I wanted to address some of the more obvious ones. Drive past my old shop. I kind of miss that place in a way. The new one's much nicer though. First, let me start off with how the Green APU works. What it does, it has a 3-cylinder Kubota engine, and it will cycle antifreeze through the truck's engine, the primary Caterpillar engine. It's sitting right underneath us right here. So the way it works in the wintertime is the engine will warm up the water. It'll cycle the warm coolant that it heats up with the 3-cylinder Kubota into the back of the head, cycle forward through the engine block, and then up through the upper radiator hose, down the radiator, and then up the lower radiator hose through the water pump, and cycle it back through the Green APU. It will also simultaneously run hot coolant through the heater core box, which is in the sleeper cab on the side. That it will use to heat the cab for me. In the summertime, it'll run a air conditioning compressor, an automotive style air conditioning compressor that will run the air conditioning in the cab for me. Meanwhile, it's using the engine and the engine's radiator, the truck and the Caterpillar engine, to cool down the hot coolant from the APU running. That's how that works. Also, I did forget to mention, it has its own alternator, 12-volt alternator. what it does is it'll maintain all 4 of Orwell's primary batteries. With those batteries being maintained, I also have an inverter that I use to charge my laptop. Now, I don't need a big inverter. I don't run a big refrigerator in here. I could, if I wanted to, just get a bigger inverter, which might happen in the future, but I doubt it. With that being said, it'll maintain the batteries and maintain the inverter, because all I do with the inverter is I charge GoPro batteries and I maintain my laptop when I'm running it. That's really all I use it for. That's how the system works. Now, I got a lot of questions. A bunch of comments about it, quote, still being diesel, how is it still green? Well, the answer is real simple. It makes far less exhaust and it burns far less fuel than the primary Caterpillar. If I use the Caterpillar to run the air conditioning, you're running a 400 horsepower, what is it, somewhere around 14 liters, 15 liters of a huge monster Caterpillar engine to do what a small little tiny little Kubota could do. All you're doing is spinning an air conditioning compressor or using it as a gigantic water heater. Now, the Caterpillar engine burns a little bit over a gallon an hour at an idle at about 900 RPM. Maybe one day I'll do a fuel burn comparison over the course of time to show what the APU burns compared to the Caterpillar. Maybe I'll do that in the future, I don't know. So we're burning far less fuel, which in my case, I hardly ever idle this truck, with the exception of when it was really, really cold, where I feared Orwell would not restart or would give me a huge problem and complain about restarting. You've seen some of the cold starts in previous videos. Here's an example. Not a fan of all these damn traffic circles in Wisconsin. They are so annoying. Now, other guys have commented, you know, they make battery operated bunk heaters. Oh, I'm well aware of that. I'm not at all a fan of those things, and I'll tell you why. Because they run on your battery and they burn diesel. You know, they electrically pull fuel out of your tanks and they burn it in a little combustor. Then they run a water jacket and they put it up into your sleeper. Okay, great. However, it's not recharging your batteries. So if it's 20 degrees outside, this engine is going to be freezing cold. And I will have to lay in that starter for every bit of 2 to 3 minutes to get it to fire. Now I have to do that on a weak set of batteries. Why would I do that? That makes no sense to me. If it gets really cold, you still have to idle. Oh, and it doesn't handle, you know, being down in Miami in the summertime. There's no air conditioning for that. Do they make 12-volt air conditioners? Yeah, sure. Same problem. Run it too long, you're not getting your engine to start. So now I have to go get a very expensive road service in order to get my primary engine started. Now, ask me how that saved me any money. Idling would have been cheaper. What is it going to cost me? $500-600 to get the truck jump started? Okay, great. So I saved $50 in fuel, but I got to spend $500 to start the engine. That's a loss of $450. That's not good business. So yes, the Green APU is a small diesel engine, and it sips on fuel compared to this Caterpillar engine, just sucking it down. Also, here's another thing to think about for you guys, because most of you do not run trucks as old as mine. You have trucks
approaching the railroad crossing.
Thank you.
You have trucks that have your DEF systems in there. You have more modern emission systems on these trucks. And idling probably isn't any good for that. As far as the regen and all of that, I don't know how any of that works. I don't have it. But you're wearing out all these components for no reason. That doesn't help. So worse than me, you guys got all that complicated stuff you're wearing out just to heat water. That doesn't make any sense. But again, in my particular case, I didn't idle the truck. I just froze, unless it was really cold, like really cold, dangerously cold. Or I just shut the truck off and put my little fan on and sweat. And if it got really bad with the windows down, and there were quite a many days, the mosquitoes chased me right through the hotel. I couldn't leave the windows down and get all the bugs in the truck, and then you get eaten alive, unless you cover yourself in a blanket. The other thing I forgot to mention in the video was that when you're in a pinch, and all equipment has some types of problems to it. You're going to need to replace a belt eventually, a tensioner, an idler pulley, a tensioner pulley, air conditioning compressor, whatever it may be. The unit is built with mostly automotive style parts. Now yes, they machine and manufacture their own pulley system for the crank pulley, the alternator pulley, and their water pump pulley, and the brackets to hold the automotive style tensioner on, and the little spacer under the thermostat housing. They manufacture that stuff themselves, so it's easy to get, and believe me, I saw their parts room, they have plenty of it. But more importantly, almost all the parts that they buy to make the unit function, they're standard automotive style things available at any auto parts store, such as your tensioner pulleys, idler pulleys, your serpentine belt, and so on. These things are easily available anywhere. That makes life really easy as far as servicing it. The oil filter, you can get that anywhere. another thing that some people brought up was the close proximity to some of the harnesses and wiring and hoses to my turbocharger. Well, first of all, I'm running a stock engine. It gets hot, but it doesn't get really, really hot like some of these big, huge monster motors do. First off. Second off, if you look at the factory wiring on that Caterpillar engine, I haven't yet melted the Jake brake wires, and they're much closer to that turbocharger and exhaust manifold than anything else over there. So I'm kind of using that as a guide. Not to mention also, when I'm driving, there's a considerable amount of airflow underneath that cab. You know, look at the size of the grill. So if I'm making big power to the point where that exhaust could be an issue, the engine fan is on, or I'm moving fast enough where the airflow will create it to not, you know, have it not be a problem. I don't see it being an issue. If it is, we'll take care of it, but I don't see it being. But, you know, as we go, you guys will see the trials and tribulations, if they exist, with the unit and the installation. But to me, for a company like that to actually tackle a job such as Orwell and get it done, and get it done in the manner in which they did, such a unique setup to it. Everything from thinking about that quarter fender that's keeping the crap out of the fan and that condenser, to how they routed the wiring and the hoses to it, running just like right next to the factory harnesses and wires and hoses. You know, maybe I ought to speak on that real quick too. What happened was I had called them up and I explained them the trouble with the truck, that it was a Cabover, and their answer to me was, can you bring it to Lemont, Illinois so we can look at it? Actually, correct that. First they wanted a picture. So I sent pictures of the truck, and they called me back the next day and said, yeah, they asked me about the cab jack, they asked me about my exhaust. I said the cab jack can be relocated, and so also the exhaust can be relocated as well if needed. They said, okay, cool. When we'd like to see the truck in Lemont, Illinois, can you get it down here? At that point, they asked me, can you bring the truck to Lemont, Illinois? We'd like to actually see it, take some measurements so we can go ahead and make the different components, such as a longer wiring harness or whatever that you may need. I'm like, yeah, sure, I'm coming through there. Make it happen. So I came through, brought the truck inside, took a look at it, measured the space that was allowable and available. We discussed a myriad of options, including moving my fuel tank, including even cutting my fuel tank, making it smaller and putting the Green APU behind the fuel tank. I didn't like that idea, and I explained why, so we decided to put it exactly where it is. Approximately a week later, I brought the truck back for the installation, and they immediately got started on it. By the time the day was done into the following day, the truck was completed, ready to operate, and I went and did that load with it. No troubles. I slept like a baby that night. It was about like 38 degrees overnight, and I slept like a baby all night. Turned on the key to start the engine, the water temperature was already 180 degrees. The truck was ready to ride, good to go. Let's roll. Fired up. Turned the key, pushed the button, fired right up, no troubles. Engine was already up to operating temperature. It was a great day. I really messed up in not filming that, but I didn't have cameras to do it, so. But we will be showing that in the future here as we roll on with this load. So I hope that answers some unanswered questions that I had omitted in the whole excitement of the day, trying to make a nice video for you guys and show what it is they do, how they do it, why they do it, and so on and so forth. Those are the few things I felt that I omitted. Now on with the day. Let's get down to Chilton, get this freight picked up. try to get the rest of the work done that I have to get done today after we load. It's going to be an interesting week, believe me. Now, some of you are probably asking, what happened to you with the RZR? Well, I'm finding out that stock springs on a Pro XP, now that would be the 2021 Pro XP Ultimate, the stock springs on those get pounded out and sag amazingly fast, and I didn't know this. We got out there, now I've run the equipment quite hard, you know, running the trails in Wisconsin. I kind of like rally drive it almost. But I run her through her paces real good. And, you know, we enjoy it. Me and Jen have a great time with it. Now, I was introduced to the sand dunes out in Glamis, California, and Pismo Beach, you know, the Oceano dunes out there on the Pacific Ocean north of LA. And, of course, Glamis, which is like where California, Arizona, and Old Mexico meet up right there. So, that's where I got introduced to sand. A friend of mine, sadly a former friend of mine, I don't know why, when he got divorced he decided he didn't want to be my friend no more. That's okay. He had his family out there all the time. They had a bunch of Jeeps and a sand rail, like this 4-seater dune buggy that was all tubular, and it had a V6 Honda VTEC engine in it. And it was badass. It was badass. He had it painted like a cop car. Here's some pictures of it from back in those days. Well, one time I used my yellow Peterbilt to haul 3 Jeeps of theirs out to Glamis. And, you know, naturally because I did all the hauling for them, I got to ride for free. The sandrail rode in the enclosed trailer that they towed with a motorhome. That was a Glamis trip. I didn't get to drive anything except some Jeeps, and I didn't really do any things with the dunes. I kind of like stayed on the smaller stuff because, you know, it wasn't my equipment. I didn't want to tear nothing up. But now I have my own equipment, so we really wanted to start playing in the sand. That was the idea when I bought this thing, was I wanted to play in the sand, but I still wanted to play in the trails in the mud. I wanted a good all-in-all vehicle. But being in Wisconsin, we were width restricted to 63 or 64 inches wide. That Can-Am that Cletus McFarland used to own, that was sold to Tim Gentry, the one I drove through the pond. Yeah, that one. I wanted one just like that, but those are too wide for Wisconsin. So living here, I decided to go with the Polaris because I can get the turbocharged engine, the souped up model, without worrying about the width restrictions. So that's why we went with the Pro XP. Naturally, when we bought it, you know, supply shortages, all that drama. So we took what we could get, which was the one we got, the white and black. They call it White Lightning. We bought that unit and we love it. We absolutely love it. But over the years, not even year, but over the time we've owned it, we pounded the springs down. So we put the sand paddle tires on it and we're running around in the dunes, and I noticed the rear end, it bottoms out quite often, like it maxes out the suspension full stroke up often, and it shouldn't do that, at least not as easy as it does. From what I'm reading, that's a common problem with those units, but I didn't know it. Yeah, but I didn't know that on Saturday. I learned it on Sunday night when I started reading into it. We went out to the sand dunes out there in Silver Lake, Michigan. We had a great time. I think the area I was jumping, what they call Test Hill. I don't know if it was that hill they call Test Hill or the further hill up. It's like a big peak. Anyway, I was the only one out there. It was just me and Sean. Sean had the ridge marked for me and started jumping the Razor a little bit more by a little bit more. And the landings were great. But the following day, with the following few hours, more people showed up at Test Hill. We came back and I started jumping again. And I had a terrible landing. Landed kind of sideways. Jen rattled her head, banged her head on the roll bar. She was wearing her helmet though, so she didn't really want to jump no more. I'm like, okay, but I wanted to continue. So I let another Razor go ahead of me, and I watched the line he took up the hill, and he took one that had a more defined lip. At the bottom of the hill, I came up at the same speed I was, but this time I gave her more throttle coming up the hill. When I hit that lip, I was airborne in a hurry. I was airborne for a good long time. When I landed, it felt like I landed flat. I didn't really land flat. I landed slight, kicked over to the right a little bit. But still, it was a great landing. Problem was my suspension had maxed all the way up, and everyone said I bottomed out. I thought I meant bottomed out the suspension. No. I put the car's belly right on the ground. And when I did, it compressed my lower back. And when I get the actual pictures off of sandflix.com, you'll see my head in the different frames bobbing around. I may not even have been conscious at landing once I landed. Because you see my head in one picture, I'm down like this. Another picture, I'm up like that. So all I know is I felt real goofy after I landed. And the car felt like it wasn't running right. Then when I pulled the car over, I couldn't get the door open easy. I thought I bent the frame and ruined the car. There was nothing wrong with the car. It was me. I pinched my mother said it's a sciatic nerve in the back of the lower part of my back. Pinched that nerve. And the pain was excruciating. In time, it dulled out and went away. Today's Tuesday. This happened on Saturday. I'm feeling way better, like almost 100% perfect now. A little soreness, but nothing terrible. I think my tailbone is hurt more than anything else right now. Oh man, what an impact. So we got to look at upgraded springs. So I called the dealer I bought it at, and they were talking about revalving my shocks and putting new springs in it. So I'm looking into getting a set of springs and sending it out to be revalved, but I don't know if I'm going to have the dealer do it or if I'm going to do it and throw it on my FSC Speed Shop channel. But that's the story, that's what happened. I drove around the remainder of the day, and that was fun. And then the next day, we kind of took it easy. Also, my maniac son, Sean, towards the end of the night, he jumped the Jeep on the same hill. And he got 4 to 5, 6 feet of air, probably more like 5. One thing we found out, Jeeps are tough. Dad's back can't handle being landed on the sand that hard. And my son is a maniac. But like he says, he bought a toy and he intended on using it as such. And it was a great day for my family. Sadly, Matt wasn't there. He's preoccupied right now. But he'll be with us in California. But we wanted to get used to the sand. I wanted Sean to get used to the sand. I wanted me to get used to the sand. And kind of get a little glimpse of baby Glamis, right? Find the do's and don'ts, what you can do, what you shouldn't do, and so forth. And to be honest, the last time Sean took time off to come out and hang out with us, it didn't work out so good. That trip was ruined by the family drama over Christmas time. So I definitely wanted to try to make it right with my son that we had an awesome time on vacation, you know, taking time off. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to make sure that my boys have a great time, and Sean needed time without Matthew, with me. I needed to spend some great time with my son Sean. It was a good healing experience. And I accomplished a bunch of things during that time that were only dreams to me in the past. So I was glad I was able to share that experience with my son. For a guy like me, family is everything. Especially my children. I've accomplished a lot in my life, more than I ever anticipated. And my children make me very happy in the fact that I've managed to lead them into being good young men. To scratch that, I've managed to lead them into being great men. They're both professionals now. Matthew is getting ready to achieve a major goal in his life, and I'm very proud of him for it. Sean is doing much the same and ahead of Matthew, obviously, and I couldn't be prouder of my sons. And as a father, to have both my sons winning in life, that I'm winning in life even if I lose. Now it's time to get back to work. I got to haul freight. I got to get that money. Been slacking. Dispatch calls me part-timer. I've been doing that for a long time though, but time to get back on the working game. Get moving, run hard, get the freight, get some work done in the shop when I can. Take care of business, get it all done. That's the name of the game. Oh, and one last thing. One mod at a time, boys and girls. I'm not rich yet. Don't bust my chops about that wheel. Keep breaking my chops about that wheel. I'll chrome out the whole truck and I'll still leave that wheel on there. The fact of the matter is I can only do so much at once. I've been dealing with so much family things that I really haven't had the ability to do everything I wanted to do for me. So, Orwell doesn't get fancy wheels, and that's just so be it. The family man first. Elderly parents in Texas. The children are grown, but I still gotta hang with them and do stuff with them, and that's important to me.